Hi, you've reached Tim and Gabrielle from Excel Talk. We're not able to come to the phone right now, but if you leave a message, we'll be sure to respond by playing your message on our live Excel Talk broadcast. Welcome everyone to Excel Talk number 8.
Live from Atlanta, actually live in person for the first time ever.
Yeah, this is great. We think it's working.
With some last minute challenges. Yes.
So we're here at AUG Summit 2022. We've got people walking around behind us, and we're here in Atlanta. Probably over 100 people for sure here.
Yes, absolutely.
Between 100 and 150. And yeah, we did it. We almost had a cool hotel bar thing that we were going to use. Luckily, we didn't because they already took it away.
Yes. And then we had issues with the crappy hotel Wi-Fi.
We might still be having issues with that.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, we have people watching that can comment in the chat window. So we're outspotting from this iPhone. We have a few devices that are sharing internet connection. But yeah, we're live and with a special guest.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Rick Reynolds. I work at Geotechnical Consultants Incorporated out of Columbus, Ohio. And we are a third-party consultant for commercial development projects. We specialize in soils, concrete, masonry, structural steel, and all that jazz. And we've been using Acumatica now for about 2.5 years.
Oh, that long. Okay.
Yeah, we started on, we're on 2020 R1, I believe, and we're about to upgrade to newer one, the 2022, actually R1, but we just found out that might be coming out here in the next week. So we're discussing whether we just jump to the newest upgrade of R2, might as well, right? So this is a brief rundown of,
hold on, before you get there, I got to point out the giant popsicle stick that you found for us so we can do football style interviews. Another one of our rigged up
high tech.
Yes, very high tech. Before we jump in, so today we're going to talk about, I'm going to call it Excel as middleware, as a way to get data to tools, right?
Yeah.
And Rick's got a cool use case here that he's done that shows what it looks like on the front end. And then we're going to back into some ideas, some thoughts on using Excel in some way to automate the refresh of it, right?
So, yeah, for sure. We can definitely do that.
So yeah, go ahead and give us an overview of your company.
Yeah. So I gave you a sneak peek there, but we're a geotechnical consulting firm in Central Ohio, and basically our list of services are listed here from our website. But we're basically a third-party consultant, so we check to make sure the building's built the right way, and we'll ensure that things are according to the structural drawings. And we have an environmental department that'll check out all environmental issues on a site. So that's kind of in a nutshell, big picture of what we do. But how does that really pertain to Acumatica? Well, we like to use Acumatica for all of our billing, time card, inventory projects. Well, we don't really use inventory a whole lot because we don't have a lot of stuff on the shelf, but mainly the time card invoicing, billing clients, and all that jazz. And my niche.
So it sounds like projects. You got a lot of construction projects, stuff going on. Okay.
Tons of that. And we've been around for about 40 years. So we have a big, massive shelf of data. And I'm like, how do we get this to convey the best information possible to our stakeholders, our project managers, our engineers, our clients, etc. And the best way to do that is through a dashboard. And so since we got Acumatica, I'm like, okay, well, this is a good streamlining process of cleaning up all of our data. It acts as a good funnel to make sure things are entered in the right way. And then, taking that valuable information and portraying it into a dashboard is where I was like, this would be ideal. So my specialty is in GIS, and so that's where I found this out.
What does GIS stand for? Do you know?
Right, that's the question everyone always asks. Is
just like ERP. What does ERP stand for?
So GIS stands for Geographic Information Systems, and it's I think the best way to think about it is like Google Earth. That's a GIS. The software I actually use mostly is Arcgis Pro, and it's developed by ESRI. And they're the premier software for mapping spatial information. And so,
And that seems like that'd be a big need for any construction company. You want to see it visually on a map, not just numbers on an Acumatica dashboard, which, you know, you can do some stuff there, but mapping is a little different, right? I mean, it's a little more difficult than just numbers on a canvas, right?
yeah, that's correct. There's all sorts of different, you get really into data analysis pretty quickly. And then ESRI does a good job of giving you the block coding kind of tools. So you don't have to really get into coding, but it's there if you want to. And so it's more of, if you know what your fields are and you have the right data upon entry, then you can convey some pretty cool interactive maps, graphs, and so forth. And then statistical analysis is the next step, is determining the statistical significance of conclusions. Like, there's a 95% chance we will get a project within Central Ohio in the next year, you know, something like that, which is, we've got 30,000 rows of data to back that up, you know? So that's kind of how the big picture of this stuff works. And then I guess with that, I'll dive into some.
Sorry, I thought Gabrielle was going to say something, so I looked over.
No,
Okay.
I'm listening. I'm learning. I'm not familiar with the industry at all. So.
Yeah. I'm in school right now at Kent State University for my master's in this, so that's where I kind of get a lot of my background. You know, thought process, gears turning, and developing more and more.
What'll the degree be called?
Master's of Geographic Information Sciences.
Really?
Yep. It was either that or my MBA, and I'm like, everyone's doing an MBA nowadays. I'll do something fun.
So I've seen Rick posting on LinkedIn, and I was wondering what was really motivating. I thought it was just a hobby. Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. You got a little more something driving you along a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. But it is a hobby too. You know, you gotta do something you love, right? Yeah. So this is a little brief rundown, segueing to ESRI's product that I've used to make this. This is ESRI's Arcgis Dashboards application, and they have all sorts of services that they offer. But as you quickly look at it, it's very compelling to see just the trends of data and all the resources. So I would highly recommend, if anyone's curious about this, to explore ESRI's website and their services that they offer with this. And that leads me to, I'll actually jump to Acumatica next to see the end product.
Now, we don't want to get you in trouble here. You sure what you're going to show is okay? We're not going to get you in trouble? All right.
I'm not going to go into any details.
You're not going to show us your P&L or anything like that? Okay. All right.
But now in the dashboard, it's all interactive. So if you click on a point, like a project location, it'll show you all that information. You can see your margin, your expenses. You can see a project manager, who the client is. And this is all private to GCI. You know, this is in-house seated user licenses and stuff like that. So we can grant permissions within that. So what we've chosen to do is the most secure way is to embed it as a dashboard into Acumatica, so that, you know, our users are logging in through the Acumatica login, and then it's there as a dashboard for them.
Have you had any issues embedding Arcgis into Acumatica? No,
I have not. No,
okay,
it's just through a domain, so it's a URL.
Oh, is that your own domain or is their own domain? It's hosted.
No, it's an embedded HTTP.
Okay.
You know, just a
because they each website can set restrictions on embedding, like they call that cross CORS. I have a blank. Yeah, so there are restrictions. For example, we tried embedding the full Excel online experience before. It's not possible. You can embed a portion of it. Mm-hmm. Some sites can be embedded. If you try to embed Google, for example, I think it's not going to work.
Right. Yeah. This one's okay. They try to make their stuff as universal as possible. So like if you go to Johns Hopkins, their COVID dashboard had over 2 trillion views, I believe. There was a dashboard of where COVID cases were arriving. So
was that ESRI as well?
Yes, that was. I mean, I can pull it it up on the fly here. Once you go, and then it's if you go to Johns Hopkins website, you can see there. It'll look just like ours because it's obviously ESRI's product, so they all have a similar theme to them. But it's pretty fascinating to see.
Highly scalable.
Yeah. Zoom in, you can see different areas, and obviously they've got disclaimers on there of like, once you get into a certain spot, you're not saying that this house had COVID. You're just saying this average area has this amount of cases. So it's similar to this, but for this, actually, we're using exact latitude, longitude through Acumatica. We've asked our project managers and some volunteers within the company to, when they get free time, go through, get the project address, and drop a pin on Google Earth and get your latitude, longitude coordinates for the center of your project. So that's what we're basing.
So you added custom fields, or
yes.
are you using attributes?
Yes, we are. We have attributes to determine that. We use that for to department that it was in, the date it was drilled, any sort of geohazards, like if it's a sinkhole or a karst topography area where you're prone to sinkholes, so that we know as the project managers, they're looking at this map and they can say, oh, this region of projects, they're in karst topography. There's a high chance of sinkhole occurring in this area. It just gives them some more tools in their toolbox to make the right decisions as a geotechnical engineer before someone puts their building there.
So you did that manually across all the projects you had in the system?
We do that daily. So we're still trying to get that.
Have you considered using the geocoding APIs to just do it based on the address?
So ESRI has a geocoding capabilities,
but Google Maps too. There's an API.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, sure. And we try to do that, but the problem is upon coming into Acumatica, we have 40 years of all this old data.
Okay.
And so we were coming from the old SL into Acumatica.
Dynamics SL.
Yeah,
Okay.
Solomon. Yeah. And so we brought all that in, and a lot of that data upon entry to Acumatica was kind of scattered. So we've got some projects that just say Walmart, for example. There's so many Walmarts out there, like, and with no address, or it'll just say like corner of 2 streets, like there's Peachtree Road right there. So it might be the corner of that intersection. Well, which corner? North, south?
So you can hardly automate
north,
that.
east, south, east, west. Like which one is it?
Okay.
And so that's what we're doing for the address is if we have a good address, we'll drop a pin on it. So that right now this is portraying, I'll go ahead and switch over to that. This is portraying all of our projects. So you'll see that the biggest number here is 18K. We've actually done over 30,000 projects. So this is only showing projects with coordinate data. And that's the big thing to remember, because statistically, all of our stuff is slightly skewed because we have missing data for a lot of things. So this is just showing what the clean data is. And, in 2020, we decided, okay, we're going to put latitude, longitude on as many projects as we possibly can to allow for maximum input on the dashboard. And so that what a typical engineer will do is they'll come in, they have the different departments of which department at GCI did the work. And so we can zoom in.
So what you did right there, to me, is the hard part with maps, because when you're just dealing with numbers on a dashboard, it's very flat. But there's this 3-dimensional element going in and out. Maybe talk about, we take it for granted on Google Maps that you zoom in and you start to see more stuff, but you don't really think about why or what you're seeing. How much control do you have when you're building this in terms of what's happening as you're zooming in and out?
Yeah, you've got a ton of control. This is all built in with the Arcgis Dashboards functionality. It's actually as simple as doing a slider. So we can basically, here's the customization of it. We actually can go through and set tolerances, scaling tolerances to the cluster. So
like how far apart the points are allowed to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's I'll go over here to the behind the scenes of this a little bit. And so this is actually taking a web map, and the web map's embedded to the dashboard, and the dashboard's embedded into the Acumatica. So if we go into the actual map here, this is where we actually edit the layers that are being shown. So this is the clusters layer. So I can go in here and I can properties, and then over here there's a clustering tab, and so this basically tells us how much do you want it to cluster. And so I can scale this and I want it to cluster as much as I want to, or I can make it show up or disappear at whatever scale we want. So I just kind of use my judgment as a geospatial analyst to determine what looks best to the eye.
I like that. You're a geospatial analyst. Nice.
Yeah, GIS.
What about, can you change the cluster, whether it's low to high, depending on what level you are on the map?
Yeah.
Like, so you could change it here and it'll only remember it for that zoom level? Or not that specific?
It's kind of dynamic. So that's within the drawing layers. So right here, I mean, this scale will apply to all levels.
Okay.
So and then you just got to kind of toy with it and be like, okay, is that what I want? Now, see, I don't like this as much because you get a lot more overlap.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the high clustering, so it's more vague, and it kind of entices the user to scroll into those areas more and be like, I want to see that expanded, And so that's kind of how that works. That's behind the scenes. We'll go over here. So when you go in, then there gets to a point where the clusters turn off, and you start seeing all of our actual point locations from our lat long. So these are all of the different projects we've done. And then obviously, I'm not going to do it right now just for confidentiality purposes, but if you click on these, it'll show you a list of our attributes within those projects.
Then do you have a link, like a hyperlink that would, if I clicked on it from there, it would go.
Question.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's a great question.
Like, yeah. So then it would open up the project in Acumatica, for example.
Yeah.
Or could you do that?
So there's a way to do that, but we haven't figured that out completely yet. What I actually want to do, and instead of doing just a link, is I want to do a blob. It's called a blob. It's a data field type, and it allows attachments. So each of these jobs has a geotechnical report, for at least in the engineering jobs, which is a report that our engineers have typed up and stamped and said, this is our recommendation for this site. We're proposing these options for whatever circumstances may arise on this property. And I think it'd be really cool to stitch together through a blob attachment the geo report to these points. So like if any engineer wants to come in, they don't have to go through the archive file folder and see where the PDF is. They can just click on the map and then see the attachment there. I think that'd be the coolest thing to do. But in terms of data space, that would get pretty hefty. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of the end product here. And this is all getting done through a Velixo tap-in, which Gabriel will speak on here in a minute probably. And we have all our projects in Acumatica, and the data field. The nice thing about the Velixo is that it's semi-live. It's almost real time. And when you're looking at a dashboard, you want it to be as close to real time as you can. I mean, until you get to like that stock ticker kind of thing, like, oh, a new project just got in, oh, another one got in, and then you can see it like kind of pop up on the map. So this is really nice because I can just pull that Velixo sheet at any point and refresh this data whenever I want to update it. I mean, and it takes 30 seconds to do.
But you still need to upload the file to Arcgis at the end of the process.
Correct. Yeah, I have to go in through here and actually append the data.
Yeah, can you show us?
Yeah.
Append. So are you just submitting the projects that have been modified, or?
Yeah. So basically, if I go into this, if I go into the web map for this, so there's the CSV for the project locations. I actually convert to CSV because it reads CSV a little bit better, but you can also do Excel. It works just the same.
Okay.
But if you go down and you go to overview, settings, update references.
Okay, so these are the columns: project ID, status.
Yeah, these are all the different. This is the data that we're getting into here.
Okay.
So these are filterable things on the dashboard. So like if I want to, what those are right there are up here at the top. If I go to this search bar, I can actually search for a specific project, and it'll actually run through the attributes of the field. So like, I'm trying to think of how to do this without, if I search like one of these job numbers.
We don't want to get you in trouble.
Yeah. If I search one of these job numbers, it'll actually take me to that job number, and then it'll pop up the information with that job. So that's what that is it's showing it.
But it also searches the information as well, not just the job number.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's actually searching there the project ID, the status, the department, the year, the city, and the description. So if it contains, if the project ID contains, like 110, it'll look for all the projects that contain that, or the status, active, inactive, things like that. Department, engineering, environmental, all the services we offer. And then what year. So that's where that date filter. So this would be the last modified. So if I go to like the last year, this year, these are all the projects that in Acumatica that have been modified this year.
Okay.
And so then if I do like last year, it's going to change and it'll show me everything that was modified last year. Modified meaning someone opened it and did something to it. So we're working on right now, creating this to do created date and completed date. We haven't set up our GI yet, and Acumatica, which I'm looking forward to Tim's class coming up tomorrow, yeah, on how to do that more effectively, because then we'll be able to add in the date and be able to see how things change over time. Get a little spatiotemporal. That's a big word for you.
I was looking on my end if there's a way to push this data to Arcgis using the APIs, because I know that the topic we want to discuss today is live data and refreshing stuff automatically. Yeah. And I found, I just show what I picked up here. So they do have a REST API, just like Acumatica, which could be used.
Gets into JavaScript.
To push, yes. I found that. I found something in Python. So there looks like to be enough in the product.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely possible. I just got to dive into it a little bit more.
Good. Yeah, we'd be happy to help you with that.
I'm excited for it.
But I love what you did, because there's this phrase, I can't remember if I mentioned it on Excel Talk before, but guy named Rob Colley that I follow a lot likes this phrase, faucets first. Have I said faucets first? Okay. So the idea of faucets first is that, all right, if you're going to go build a sink, you can think about going to Home Depot. You have so many different choices on how many different faucets you have, right? But what about your plumbing? You don't really care about that part, right? I don't care about what the pipes look like.
Okay.
So, but getting the faucet right, there's a lot of options, right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea of faucets first is that you build something that's useful and people actually start to use it.
Yeah.
And once they use it, then you go care about the plumbing. And the plumbing actually takes a lot longer to get the data refreshed, the APIs, the middleware, all that stuff. But if you do that first, you don't even have a value proposition yet, right? Now you build something and maybe no one used it. Maybe no one liked it. Then you know, all right, forget it. I'm not going to spend any time on the plumbing, right?
Right.
But by using Excel as the data tool, you were able to get to an end product. And are people using it? Like,
yeah, there are. And I actually do keep the view counts and stuff like that. So we can actually through within our organization here and go over to the dashboard and, you know, we can see over time how much the view count is. So this period we'll go to usage. And then it'll show basically a plot of all of our analytics. So we've got, you know,
nice.
15. This is just in this time period. So we're on like a 24-hour time period here right now. So
66 views in the last 24 hours, basically.
This is over this is over the last 6 months. So you can actually see weekends, Mondays are most common days for the dashboard activity. Today we've had a lot of requests for it. Obviously here doing some troubleshooting with it, but you can see the trend is starting to. It goes up here, it starts going up, and then it kind of stays flat. Obviously, I could plot this into Excel in itself and take out the weekends and get a trend line of like, is a change X effective or not in the dashboard, you know, and see where people are clicking. But I don't want to get into that.
But you proved that it's getting used.
Oh yeah,
and you still have to refresh the data manually, but you've now the point where you care about automated refresh. I think what I don't like is you get so obsessed about automated refresh and you don't even have a minimum viable product yet, right? So I like to me, that's why I like Excel being the data tool, right? In a lot of situations, it's the middleware that's holding two things together, like in your case here, and it's good enough, right? But then when you get to a certain point where it's being used enough and it's too annoying to refresh it, then you worry about the refresh, right?
Well, that's how the early days of this dashboard really played out. It's like I was working in ArcGIS has this thing called Model Builder. It's a fancy term for block coding. And I liked it better because I didn't know the code specifically, the Python code I wanted to use. So I was kind of toying around with these blocks. And I'm like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this. And it turned out to be this like 600 line code. And then I'm like, okay, how do I do this? I went to our CFO and I'm like, do we have any sort of like automated or near real time platform to do this? And she's like, oh, why are you doing it that way? Use Velixo. And I'm like, what? I'm like, this exists. I've been trying to like configure each field to do this and that. And
you could have bypassed Velixo completely and simply use the Acumatica customization
correct
layer to push this to Arcgis using the Acumatica APIs, the Arcgis APIs, but you might still be working on it today.
Right. But
so I like that you found a good way to make this work for you very quickly. Even like you're not a programmer. Did you receive any like programming?
I've taken a master's level class in spatial programming, but
okay.
I mean, and I'm getting more and more into it day to day, just because it's, you know, I'm curious now. I'm like have an investment to this. I'm like, I need to know how to make this more customizable.
Cool.
So I actually,
but even if you knew how to do it, it would take a lot more time, right? Yeah.
Using the Velixo software, it's flipping phenomenal. So I pulled up some of the other cases where these types of dashboards can be found. The biggest one's that COVID dashboard that I was talking about. So this is through ESRI's ArcGIS platforms. So, you know, you click into it, and this is the one that has trillions of views on it. It's the John Hopkins dashboard, and you can see the power that you can get to in these dashboards through ArcGIS. So they're showing the exact cases and the trends and over time, and obviously it looks very similar to what we were just looking at, right? Yeah. But this is probably made of a team of like 20 or 30 people that are just constantly tweaking the dashboard. So if we, you know, they've got the counties listed with how many things are going on, where active cases, 28-day running averages, and so that
I got to throw in here. So we talked about this a little bit, but I can't even remember the answer. What they're really good at is geospatial dashboards, right? Yeah. There's also yeah,
Yeah.
there's a bunch of other dashboard tools. So one I like is Power BI.
Yes.
They have some type of visual for Power BI, right? But it was like this. Tell me more about that. You looked
Yeah.
into it?
So we've recently that gets kind of into the newer aspect of what we've done at GCI. We've recently invested into this software called MetaField, and it's made by Agile Frameworks, and it's an automated report writing system for our field technicians and field representatives to essentially they fill out a survey, which obviously it's a pre-programmed survey that auto-populates to a document that will write, so it becomes more railroaded. Their reports they don't have to worry about sentence structure, grammatical errors. We basically funnel it to like, what was the date? And then when they put the date in, that's going to show up on the top of the report is site visit date, and it's right there.
Like an intelligent form of Mad Libs, a little
Basically,
bit.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah. And that's what I told them when we were doing the whole training. And so the Power BI aspect of that has become, we're now exporting, we're taking that data and we're now trying to make that into like stat. We do reports. We're writing reports on whatever activities were. Document. So that's
But the ESRI, there's a visual that you can add into Power BI.
You're talking specifically in the design.
In the Power BI side of things, not in the Acumatica side of things. I can't remember if you even, yeah, here. It's like
Right
if
here?
you were, not the Power BI tile, it'd be on the Power BI website. I don't remember if you looked at that, but I just know there is a visual. So you could look into ESRI has got a visual that you can add onto a Power BI dashboard. I don't remember though what version of it is. It might be not the pro version or something.
They actually have that. It's a partnership that Microsoft has with ESRI.
Yeah.
And it allows you to, because Power BI tells you about your data. You take an Excel sheet and dump it in there. If you've got locations to that, addresses, latitude, longitude. I think that's pretty much the main aspects that you could do for your location. But if you've got both of those, Power BI will ask, do you want this to be a map? And they use ArcGIS's software to make that trend map.
Got it.
And so then they'll say, okay, this table has latitude, longitude coordinates. Let's see what it looks like on a map. And if we dumped this Elixir sheet into Power BI and use that ArcGIS functionality. Now, granted, Power BI is going to ask you to log into ArcGIS. They're going to ask for your license when you go to do it, because you can't really just use it if you don't have a license. You can probably use like a free or trial or something like that.
There's a basic map built into Power BI. I tried creating a dashboard for Velixify map of all clients worldwide.
Yeah.
It's somewhat limited because I also wanted to have some sort the areas of the world where we have more clients. But it was
that's the regular map, right?
Yeah, the regular map.
There's the one I'm talking about specifically ArcGIS.
Yeah, but you have to pay for it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so then you'd be embedding ArcGIS in Power BI, maybe embedding Power BI in Acumatica. Yeah, it gets interesting.
Convoluted pretty quick there.
All right, sorry to take us down that tangent.
Give me a second here.
Oh, you're still sharing your screen, I think.
Oh.
Let's switch screens there.
Okay, that's 1, 2, 3.
There we go.
ABC.
Wait, he's still logging into his. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 ABC. Got it.
Let me get to our Power BI.
Okay, let me know when I can switch back.
Yeah, for sure.
On that note, I'll mention that
I'll go into Power BI.
during one of the demos this morning, we all got to see Joel Gress's inbox. So thank you, Joel, for being so transparent.
I've got nothing out. So let's go into like if you're saying if you create a new Power BI. So like if we were to manually enter or paste our data, I could actually, let me think if I don't know if I have it saved or not on here.
What I'm thinking of might only be available in the desktop version, I think.
Yeah, there's a, let me see if, oh, here, this is a good one. This is a test one, cancer statistics in the United States. This is like one of their templates. So this would be perfect. But if you go in, their map here is probably running, this might be the default one, it looks like. Let's see here. Yeah, so I think they're using the default one. But if you go in and you add a new tool, it'll actually show up just like this, Tim, over here on the right.
Yeah, that's something.
And there's actually an ArcGIS.
If I find one, I'll share my screen. Am I spelling it right? ARCGIS?
ARCGIS, yep.
Yeah, I'm not seeing one.
People on the web cannot see your screen, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, if I find one, I will actually share it.
Try that.
Did I already have? Oh, I did have one. Okay.
ArcGIS
I'll share my screen.
Yep. Go for it.
So we only had 2 HDMI cables, so we have to do a little jump here. You
And
got
one microphone pole.
Microphone pole. That's being very generous.
Okay, so let's switch to your screen. Yay.
All right, so I've got Power BI desktop open. You were on the web version of Power BI. It's a little more limited. But so on here, what you would need to do to add it, you'd go in here, get more visuals.
Yep.
You get more visuals, and you'd search for ArcGIS. So I'm not going to do it because I've already added it. But you would get a visual right here. So this, I haven't even tried it. This is probably where.
It'll be a default Arc map.
So this is where you need to put in your account information. Okay, got it.
It'll prompt you to log in. And so once you log in, then it'll allow you to do basic functionality, but you won't have nearly the amount of tools that ArcGIS Pro, the desktop version, has for you. And ArcGIS Pro comes with the dashboards application. So you can make things and process data, really grind through it and run code to it, use JavaScript, plugins, all sorts of things. And then you upload that then to the dashboards.
Got it.
Okay. And so Power BI gets you a little snippet of it, but it's nice for people that like to visualize their data spatially. You know, I think that spatial data is really underutilized, especially in the engineering and construction world. Like I saw something recently that like 92 or something % of engineering firms aren't like, they don't utilize that data. And I think Acumatica,
they have it, they just aren't mapping it.
Yeah, they're not like generating trends or statistics or like making data-driven decisions about their data. And so,
and it's specific too, right? It's not just street address. Like I think you were telling me earlier, you have like a project address, but then you also have specific drill holes or something, right? Like it gets very granular.
That's the newer level of things that we've been working on, is really documenting our boring locations. Where we have samples of the earth, you know, truly, like where we drilled a hole in the ground.
How accurate is that?
Wherever,
2 feet? Like what's the error?
Probably about a foot? Beach ball.
No, I mean like when you map it on ArcGIS and if someone's going to try to find that spot in the real world, how accurate is that going to be when they find it?
It'll be dependent upon the projection that they're using for the map. So as long as your projection's right for like your local area, so for like Ohio, it's the state plane. That's typical for most. And so then you'll be within, depending on how accurate your coordinates are, if you have a surveyor's coordinates, you'll be right on it. I mean, within an inch.
That's amazing.
If you're using just our off the cuff drillers locations and where we're dropping them on the map, you can be probably within, say, like at worst 10 feet. If you're in a wooded area, at most within 2 to 3 feet, you know.
If we're taking a soil sample, it's not a big deal to be off by a few feet, I wouldn't think.
Right. In our proposals, we typically say that our due diligence is within 3 meters. So, you know, like 10 feet, something like that. Just to, outside of that, I mean, we know we're more accurate than 10 feet, but that's kind of like our wiggle room of like, okay, we can get this pretty close. Before that, it was, you know, pretty cowboy style, trying to eyeball roughly off a map, landmarks, measuring it off by paces, you know, like, oh, we put this one 10 paces south of that flagpole over there. It's like, okay, what's that mean? You know? And so,
and do you view this data as your own IP as an advantage over your competitors, or is that something that you would eventually consider sharing with other firms doing the same thing elsewhere in the country?
So that's a good question. I don't know. It would have to see how our other competitors are doing their geospatial data and how they're utilizing it. It'd be cool to get like a user group together maybe for like ESRI's products and see like, hey, who's all using this in the area? Would you guys, if we did an open data consortium or something like where we all share collaborative, you know, partner with the Department of Natural Resources or partner with XYZ, you know, you never know.
Because otherwise, I'm sure like there's like dozens of companies doing the same drilling.
Yeah.
It has the same like
have the
bits
same
and
goal.
pieces of soil everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
multiple times. Yeah.
And then if you compiled all that, you probably have Swiss cheese of a map of the United States.
Which one is right when you have competing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Because and that brings in another good point that Acumatica is helpful with the attributes is if you have that classification, everyone looks at things differently. So like you may call this a brown soil, and I might call it a brown clay or a brown lean clay or a brown till, and so
You force them to pick a drop down, not describe it in text field.
Yeah, you kind of start to funnel things down. So that's a lot. I know there's a ton of information in there and tons to unpack, but it's all possible for both Acumatica and Blixo. So thank you guys, seriously.
Well, thanks for showing that. I like starting with the use case. Faucets first.
Yes.
And then let's say you're at the point now where you're getting tired of refreshing this manually. Now what do we do? Any ideas?
API.
You could do that.
You get an API.
Yes, you
and
could
then,
use the Acumatica platform directly in Acumatica, build a processing screen that pushes this to Arcgis. That would definitely be the most professional, quote unquote, professional solution, but also the one that requires the most amount of work and knowledge of the Acumatica platform and Arcgis.
Yeah, it takes a lot of powerhouse from both ends to get that going. The most applicable case that I know of through ESRI that they have is the snow map. There's a dashboard that was made for mapping where snow plows are at and what roads need to be plowed in the wintertime. And it's a real-time data feed of where the trucks are and the condition of roads based off the people that are driving it. It's really cool. You can check it out in the ESRI case.
Yeah, you need real-time data for that. So.
Yeah, and so for the people in the police departments and the fire departments to have that real-time data, it's critical.
But in your case, real-time data is not critical. Like
It's
you
not
would
super
be
critical,
okay having a daily update
Yeah.
or even automated weekly update, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how we do it right now. I'll update maybe once a month just because it also takes that long for our new projects to get in there. Like it gets redundant if I have to manually update it, and we've only added 2 or 3 projects on a map that's showing 30,000 projects, So I'll wait till there's a good chunk of like 100 or 200, and then I'll update it.
Okay.
And just because there's an API, one thing I've learned is, well, correct me if I'm wrong, just because you have an API here, Acumatica side, and an API here, ESRI side, they don't know how to communicate, right? You need something in the middle.
Yes, they don't. And like there are some vendors like that will sell you products that supposedly would magically connect different APIs. Like my experience with those tools is not very positive. So
but you do need it running. So you got to build something.
Yeah.
Let's say you code it, or let's say you use an iPaaS solution, but it has to be sitting somewhere because it has to run, right?
either
It's
on
got to
the
be on a
Acumatica
computer
server or on a different computer
somewhere.
in the cloud or here.
So if you've got Excel over here and you've got 2 APIs and some middleware over here, is there some middle ground, right?
Yeah. So I'm Excel, you're the middleware, and he's Acumatica. So how would you take the data from?
So, all right. So ArcGIS, we don't think does this, but I think some tools like Power BI can do this. It can go look at a shared OneDrive folder. So if you could at least get the Excel file refreshed somehow and saved into the OneDrive folder, it'd be able to pick it up on its own schedule. So you do like the Excel refresh at midnight, and then you'd have whatever the Power BI or whatever the dashboard tool is, do its refresh at 1 a.m. So it would give some time,
That's a good
right?
idea.
My first thought is that I'd love it if it ran in the cloud and maybe used Excel Online. I think you've looked into that. What were your findings, at least so far, with Excel Online? Oh yeah, sorry, yeah.
You can share my screen here. I actually opened up. This is a snapshot of what is behind the scenes here. ArcGIS Pro, and so there's actually a connections tab here for getting data.
Sorry, one sec. We're not there yet.
Okay.
Oh, it's still me.
That's you.
We gotta do a physical.
Oh, we gotta switch around again.
How archaic.
Yes.
Here we go. Yeah, so this is a bare bones. This is blank right now. There's no data. Once it loads up.
Yeah, there's a delay here, but
There,
you're live
there it
already.
is.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to switch the base map here to aerials just so that everyone has a frame of context of where they're at. But there's a function up here. The way this all starts is there's the add data function. So you can either do add data that's stored locally in a folder from a URL or path.
Oh, you can do a path.
XY, route events,
Can you
query
try the
loaders.
path? Is it just local path?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
so,
it says local path.
so this
Yeah,
would just
okay.
be a URL, portal item, data file, or
Which
catalog
could work, because if you were
Yes.
syncing OneDrive locally,
Correct.
You
could
can
something
have
in
an
the cloud.
HTTP share, public share.
Correct. And then
Or
there's
you could even, if something was
CSV.
in the cloud, saving it to OneDrive.
well, there's
You
actually
just use the OneDrive sync tool on your computer.
if I go to this database connections, I can go in here. I can connect to a local database, which is a file one, a mobile database, or an OLE database connection. I could go into multi-file feature connection, server, or cloud store. And then in the cloud store, I'd go through there. You can also connect to BIM, which is Autodesk's software. It's, like civil mapping, utility lines, buildings, all sorts of things. It has 3D modeling, really cool stuff through BIM.
There's a product that will also expose any OData connection as an ODBC
Yes.
connection. So
CData, I think. Is that right? Yeah.
yes, exactly.
I actually started with that with this whole process. I wanted to do it through exposed via OData, but then I started getting into timeouts with Acumatica because Acumatica after a certain amount of time. And so then I was like, that's where Velixo became
I'm not surprised. I mean, one of the reasons I finally decided to build Velixo in 2017 is that I was tired of seeing legacy software vendors just trying to use solutions like that to migrate their legacy products to the cloud.
Yeah.
I'm sure for your scenario, like it should work. There must be something that you missed, or maybe an intermittent issue in Acumatica, but for something like that with proper filters, it should have worked. The problem, like for me, is like when you take a solution that was written for a client server environment and try to make this work over the cloud by using C data, like it's not going to work.
Right.
Fine. And you had a question, like earlier, you said like maybe we should discuss how you refresh data inside the Velixo. And I think we did something nice, and like that's a good testimonial to that, because he made it work with no.
Yeah, it's duct tape, but you got it done, right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's another tool I'll mention in that same vein.
Yeah.
So DataSelf has a differential refresh tool. They call it ETL Plus, but you have to dump it into a SQL server. So you got to have that running. But if you did that, you'd get like the Velixo differential refresh, but instead of it dumping into Excel, it'd be dumping into SQL Server. Then you pick it up from SQL Server.
But this could pull data from a URL.
Yeah. Yep. So, that's point data. So that's actually how I get the points on the map.
Okay.
So that's the X field and the Y field. Oh, sorry. There we go.
We need an additional employee.
Yes. Yeah. So that's where, how I said you asked about the accuracy. That's where the coordinate system is. So coordinate system is, in a nutshell, it determines. So you take the Earth, which is round, debatable to some people. You take the Earth, which is round, and you're trying to make a 2D map. So you want to preserve the accuracy of where you're at. So that's that coordinate system. But as long as in Acumatica we have an X field and a Y field, that's where we get the coordinates, and it just spits it out to where your dots are. So it's pretty powerful.
So this might not tie in completely, but we have talked a little bit about an Excel Online refresh. Maybe you looked into that. Talk about the challenges there.
Yeah, I looked into that. There are ways to link Excel Online files to Power BI, but for like third-party functions like we had in Velixo, there's no way to get that to refresh and recalculate on the fly. The only way is through desktop, unfortunately, and that. That implies using a tool like Power Automate.
I was about to ask. Do you use Power Automate?
Yeah, like Tim is really familiar with Power Automate. Well, you mentioned it
intermediate.
Times, yeah. So at Velixo, we looked into the task scheduler and just using a simple command line tool to do that, but it still requires having a Windows interactive session. Yeah, it's not like you could have this running on a server with no like UI. Excel Office is not meant. It is possible. There are ways that are documented. We do have an article on the Velixo website, but it's not really the primary use case of Excel.
And then the challenge is, because you have to have a Windows environment, if you're going to make that part of your production process, now you have to make sure that thing's getting patched, it's getting upgraded. It's not going to get hit with security threats, right? Yes. That's the challenge. But it works. It's just a little more duct tape, right?
Yeah. I think one of the scenarios we were looking to try in the past was what's this Microsoft Flow?
Flows.
Like, is it
Which
still
is
called
Power
Flow?
Automate. Same
Power
thing.
Automate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Power
just
Automate.
new
Yes,
name.
yes, yes.
Power Automate is the new
Yes,
name.
yes. We're trying to use that to pull data from Acumatica and then create, like send emails and like do all sorts of things, but like it doesn't update. It doesn't update or run the custom functions in our case. So I would still need to have something external and OneDrive to sync the file.
Are you using it on local or cloud? Or like, do you have the Power Automate application, or are you using it on the Power Automate like Outlook
Okay, so
365?
I think we might be mixing up two products. Like initially I was talking about that. There's a desktop product that you mentioned like a few years ago.
Just like Power BI. So I pulled up on here the Power BI on the. I don't have it up right now.
Okay.
Maybe I do. Let me see.
Power refresh.
I closed it out, but it.
I'm going to show.
So he's got Power BI desktop on. I had the Power BI Outlook, or on the cloud that I couldn't get into this as quickly as he could. So if you have Power Automate desktop, you might be able to do a little bit more bells and whistles to it than the.
Yeah, the cloud base is nice and more graphical, but you can't get under the hood as much. Yeah, same with Power BI. Yeah, you need the desktop.
I mentioned it to you because I was like, I think you can do that. We're with this new Metafield thing that I was talking about with our field reporting. We're actually doing Power Automate as well in the background, and we're rocking and rolling through a lot of that drill through process of getting data out of a URL domain.
Yeah, so
great. It's working great.
Yeah, so you got the pure Excel side. You've got the API. I would even put like Power Automate in the API category because Power Automate could talk to two APIs. All right, then I'll be like the guy in between, right? Okay. So then there is another tool that we have talked about, which is we talked about years ago. Yeah, not today.
Like when we first said Power Automate, I thought this was the one.
The other tool I want to show is a real simple tool. Let me know when I'm up.
You're up.
Here, let me close it and open it up again. So there's a real simple tool. It's free for one file. It's called Power Update. It's made by a company called Power On.
Update. Yes, this is what I was.
So it's just like a third-party tool, real simple tool. And you can see here, I'm using the free version. And on the free version, you can refresh one Excel file. You're scheduling an Excel file to refresh. And then if you want to pay, it's a one-time fee of $500, I think, to refresh like an entire folder of files or as many Excel files as you want. And all it's basically doing, so you still have to have Windows involved here. Oh, you can hold it?
I'll hold that for you.
So you still have to have Windows involved. But what's nice is it'll run it on a schedule. And I used this before, and it worked pretty well in a production situation.
Now, as long as it's enabled on that one file and that schedule keeps pinging that one file and that file doesn't change, you're good, right? Or will it charge?
Say again.
Because you said it only lets you apply that to one file, and then it charges you about $500 per additional file.
No, $500 one time to do anything beyond one file.
Gotcha.
Infinite files.
Okay.
But you have two choices, and here I'll show you when I open it up. So I have one. Since I'm using the free version, I can only schedule one thing. You can see the first thing, you would give it a name, and it uses, like you mentioned, Gabrielle, it uses the Windows Task Scheduler. But I don't have to write a batch file with DOS commands to do this, and it's more reliable than using the batch file. So
how is it more reliable?
It's been years since I got into that, but I found it years ago was more reliable.
Okay.
Do you have a production example that's reliable?
I mean,
anyone you know is using it
can be flaky. Yeah, this tool no.
Yeah, so it's been years since I got into the details of it, but
they were different. As a Windows service, is that in
the end result is still a task scheduler, but the task scheduler is kicking off an executable instead.
Okay,
that handles.
But by the way, this is what we do now at VillageCell. We initially it was a batch file and a VB script. Now it's an executable like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And
you want to show that next?
Yeah, I can show it. Yes.
Okay.
I haven't tried it in a while, so maybe I'll be the guinea pig.
That's what we do here.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
So here, let me finish this off. So you can you could schedule it daily, weekly, whatever. I'm just doing it manually so I can trigger it easily. And then here is where
set during working hours as an option now.
It might. It's all. I think it's all Windows Task Scheduler options. There might be. There might be.
Oh, cool. So it's got all the other powers.
Let's see, I missed a step here. So I think because I already did it, it would ask you to pick your file or pick your folder.
Sure.
So you could have all your Excel files in one folder, and it would just go one by one and refresh each one. and then you pick a destination, so you could actually dump it into Power BI even, but I'm just dumping it into another file location.
So you said this is refreshing your Excel file, right?
Yes. So actually, here it is: a single workbook or all
But
workbooks in the folder.
It's doing the Power like query refreshes.
So why would you not use the
I'll show you that in a
built-in
second.
Power? So okay, hang on. If we go into Excel, we don't need to share mine right now. Let me just look.
This is for an unattended refresh. You're not going to be at the computer.
Right, and it'll
Okay.
happen on a recurring basis,
Okay.
right? So if you go into a blank Excel sheet and you go over to data, actually we might want to just switch over.
Well, here. Well, I got mine right here. Keep it on.
Oh, okay.
I'll pull
Yeah,
it
yeah.
up
Just
here.
pull up a blank Excel sheet. I'll show you. If you go to the Get Data tab, you can actually do Get Data from File and then from Folder, and then you can set this to through OneDrive auto update whenever that folder changes. You don't even need. to
Yeah,
use
but
the
you'd
Power
still
Update,
need
right?
something to open this Excel file and have it refresh. You need something to click the data
Oh,
refresh
okay.
button. That's what this is doing for you.
We're using that through Power Automate is what we're doing it for. With the
Okay.
meta field. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
so this
is the same
basically
thing,
all
That's good.
all this is going to do is going to go in here and it's going to click data refresh for you right
Okay.
there.
All right,
So
okay,
that whatever
works.
you've connected, Velixo or regular OData,
Yeah.
it would be refreshing,
Okay.
right?
That
Now,
works too.
there's a little catch there, but let me finish this off first.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're updating a single workbook, and I'm going to dump it actually into another folder.
Okay.
And I'm going to show something here. So right now I have it. I think all it does, and Gabrielle, you can confirm this, but all it's doing is clicking the data refresh by default. To do the Velixo refresh, you'd have to have it click this button instead,
Correct. Yeah.
which I think we need to throw VBA at. We don't have to go there, but I'll show you where we would do that. So I did two things. One, I've got the Velixo refresh on this side. So you can see when I click this refresh, it's refreshing from Velixo here. And then on this side, I've got it using the regular get data like you were talking about.
Yep.
And this is just using the regular Acumatica OData to refresh the table on the right-hand side.
Beautiful.
Let's go to second. There. So then let's say that I delete these records just to prove that it actually does the refresh. So right now it's only going to do the table on the right because that's the regular Power Query stuff. Let's close it down. Then I told it I wanted it to dump the refresh version in this folder.
Yep.
And I could either keep the file name the same, which I'd want to do if ArcGIS was going to read it because I don't want it to keep changing.
Right.
But I also could use it as like an archive. So I had to append the date time on it. So if I go here and I just say run now,
And
I don't.
can you have this run a macro at the same time because you can
Yes,
invoke?
I'll show you that in
Okay,
a second.
because
Yes.
I looked up the
That's how you would do the
documentation.
Velixo part.
Okay, well,
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to do it
Yeah,
because
okay.
I looked up what we do in Velixo, and we can only run. Actually, let me bring this up for a second. Screen. Yeah. So we have that command line app. It's not a batch file anymore. Okay, but we only have distribution list. So there's no way to just do a refresh or just run a macro to achieve this. So this is really meant to do report distribution. Save a copy in a folder.
This
like
is
you
for
did.
your email scenario or
Emails
distribution.
or like just
Okay.
saving to folders. If you only want to refresh and save in OneDrive, that wouldn't. But that's like an hour of work on our side to edit, and I think it makes sense. But if we can do it with this tool is stable and proven. Like I could also recommend that. So can we try?
Okay.
Like,
Well,
let's try it.
one sec. You can see that it did add the second file, so it did the refresh. And if I open up the second file, just want to prove that the data is there. So Power Update opened Excel, and you can see it didn't open Excel on the screen, like it did it behind the scenes.
Ooh.
But it hit the refresh button right there.
What
You
you
can
mean?
see there's the data.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just show you where it's at, and then you can show the Velixo tool. If I go back in
this
here,
is really powerful. I might.
if we keep going to it's a real simple tool.
Yeah.
It's just more duct tape
But
to our duct
I
tape. Here we
think-
go. Run macros before, so you
Okay.
can have it either run before the refresh button or after the refresh
Okay.
button.
But I think it's failed to open the Velixo connection. So if you look at the save file, it says loading connection. ...
Oh, you think
So-
it messed up the Velixo connection? Okay.
Yeah, exactly, because
Okay.
it opened the file without initializing Velixo, so that part is missing. But yeah,
Okay.
I think we could add something like that to the Velixo command line app. We could add just a refresh function.
Well, actually,
Through Velixo.
the only reason I'm talking about macros is to make Velixo work. Yours works with Velixo, so you wouldn't even have to worry about that.
And this is not like, do you see anything in the status bar when it runs?
I don't recall.
Can you like force
Do it
it to
again?
run right away?
Yeah, let's
Yes.
do it again. I don't think it does. I think it runs quiet mode. Let's see. You see some reason it's saying running again. I don't know why. Let's find out what it does here. I think it's running again. We'll know if we get a third file. But look around, see if anything pops up.
There's nothing. Let me open the task manager here. And Excel is not there anywhere.
It might not be refreshing. See if we got a third file.
Could it be
yet.
our connectivity?
Yeah. Well, it's not there anywhere, and it still says running.
We can blame the hotel Wi-Fi somehow
Yeah,
in this
right.
situation.
No,
Even though it doesn't make sense.
I would.
Live demos, right?
I would blame running Excel unattended. I think.
Well, I don't think it. Well, anyways, we don't have to dig further. That's just an overview of the tool. So
Potential solution.
let's take a look at what you got.
Task is already running. Strange. Yeah.
It gets
So
wobbly after a while, doesn't it? It was for me.
yeah, and the sound is not so good. I can if you wobble, I will hear. Too bad, actually.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Does it work? All right, we're good.
On the Velixo side, like what we have is really for scheduled report distribution. This is the primary use case. Like even again today, somebody asked me about that. Like, can I schedule this to run and send emails? So this is what we focused on in the past, and this is what you alluded to earlier. Like we relied on a batch file and a VB script to do that. But now it's a simpler command line tool. You still need to set up the task yourself. We don't have that nice and shiny UI that you saw in Power Automate.
But the batch files is scheduling your executable.
Yeah, there's no
Okay.
batch. Yeah. There's no batch file. It's just a task that
Okay.
schedules this.
It's not
And
bad.
then you specify the file name, the list you want to run, whether you want to have a log file, and if you want to run this as silent. There's a way to run it in the background for non-logged in users, but this is not recommended by Microsoft.
Can you refresh a whole folder?
You would need to have a task for each file that you
For
want
each
to
file.
refresh.
And just
Not terrible.
iterate through.
Yeah.
And can you save the resulting file in another folder like we could in Power?
Yes. That's built into Velixo. That's the distribution, this functionality.
Oh, right.
It will,
right.
yeah.
Okay.
It will save it. Yeah.
That's not bad either.
Yeah. And now I'm wondering what would happen if you dumped a source file that is Velixo enabled into a Power BI as a source.
It'd be fine because it's just a regular Excel file.
Would it update upon every refresh?
No.
Like would your graphs change?
Well, that's where you'd want to save it into OneDrive, have OneDrive sync it, and have Power BI read from OneDrive. Which you could do that.
Your
Yeah,
graphs
you could.
updating near
The
real
hard
time.
part is getting the Excel file to refresh. But yeah,
Yes.
I think OneDrive's your conduit to get it into the cloud.
Sure.
Yes.
Now, the only thing that I found that's been really effective is the cloud-based, like a Google Sheets or a Excel through OneDrive. That's like one of the cloud-based. Is Velixo enabled for that too?
Yes, but again, this is not something that is supported by Power BI. So even though you can set it up in Excel Online, it's not going to refresh it or invoke it.
Okay.
You need to be logged into Acumatica too, and the way it saves credentials and the connection settings.
Yeah, because the server it looks for all that information.
Yes, exactly. So
Makes
I
sense.
did some like research and Googling, and I couldn't find anything around on Power Automate or Power BI. But as
So
I
both
know-
these scenarios require a Windows version run and the security concerns that go along with that. Right?
yeah, at this point, but it's something that could change in the future. I would love to see this. I mean, it's like your use case is one more example of why this would be useful.
Yeah.
I told you, Tim, that we're investing in that new platform at Velixo that supports the new Excel and Office extensibility APIs. It's JavaScript based. It runs on the browser, on Macs, on Windows.
Nice.
And currently it's lacking a way for us to do the report distribution that we have on the Windows side of things. So one of the options is to have that like completely separate server product that would basically be our own version of Excel that could be used to refresh, push stuff to Power BI and other platforms. Like this seems incredibly overkill and complex, but if we have to get there or like consider this as a solution, we might end up doing. But I can also try.
But you need the faucets. Yeah, you need the use cases. You need people asking for that, right? Before it makes sense.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. I'll continue to try to break Velixo and then
No,
reach out.
yeah, I love this. I love this. And honestly, like we've been discussing a bunch of solutions that do not involve Velixo. And I mean, I'll be
You're
happy
right.
if you find something better and drop our solution. But I mean, again, this goes back to what you said, like faucets first, and you found that this is a simple
Thank you, Rob
solution.
Colley, for that phrase.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's we're trying to just apply it more and more. And if you find that audience or any of the other companies that are out there that are using this, you got to figure out what is the item that you need to, like, what's the take home. You have to have a product before you can sell it. Like, you can sell an idea all day long, but it's not going to do anything for you. But if you have a product and at least a prototype of something, whether it be a dashboard or a GI or a display of maps or graphs and tables in Power BI, then that's what you use as your driving force to then, like what you were saying, go backwards and get through the nitty gritty and make it more efficient from that point forward.
And that helps set the budget for that plumbing project too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Then you have a better idea of, do you have enough money for the middle scenario, or do you have enough money for the API scenario?
Right.
Based on who's using it and what kind of budget strings they control, right?
Yeah, and then also the power of getting feedback from your audience, like being able to hear how your stakeholders are liking or not liking aspects. I found that to be really effective, going to these different engineers and just being like, do you like this? Is it too
Wait,
cluttered?
so you mean they didn't come to you and tell you what they wanted, and then you went into a dark cave for 2 weeks and came back and they said this is great and didn't ask you anything else about it?
Well, to me, like, if they right.
There was a back and forth?
There was, yeah. No, it's one of those things that someone will speak up if they're like, okay, this looks horrible. We've tried a bunch of different things on that dashboard to get it to like the clean, concise look of the clusters and the legend and stuff like that. The first actual, I should have brought it with me, but I don't have it on my computer, is a screenshot of the first one I ever did. And I had like all these graphs, all these tables, these like percentages, calculations, trends. And I'm like, you know what? No one really cares about that. Just
sometimes less is more, right?
Yeah. And then if someone asks for it, you can give it to them. Yeah. So it's pretty cool though. All data processing, refresh. I mean, we're getting to an age where things are near real time on all fronts.
Actually, I want to ask you about that before we wrap it up. So on the real time part, let's say I just sit there every 10 minutes and I'm clicking the Vlixo Smart Refresh. Maybe talk about a little bit about the mechanics of how the Smart Refresh works. I think it uses last modified, but maybe a little bit more about that.
Some entities have last modified date time. Others only have a timestamp. I believe that in the latest Acumatica version, they've made that more standardized so that you have both. For example, GL history used to have a timestamp only. Timestamp is a binary field. We kind of figure out how to do smart refresh with timestamps as well. So basically, here's how it works. When you initiate a refresh, we look on our side if we have a timestamp stored. If we have a previous timestamp, we tell Acumatica by using the filter on all data, like, okay, give us anything.
Can I ask real quick on that? Do you store that timestamp somewhere, or are you just looking at the latest timestamp in the Vlixo data that you have cached?
We store a timestamp in the Vlixo cache. It's not in the spreadsheet. It's a local cache file. If you're actually, I was going to say if you're using Vlixo on the desktop, it's SQLite, but also the browsers like Chrome and Edge and Firefox, they all use like SQLite or like something similar to store the data as well.
Okay.
It's an embedded database. So we have that timestamp. The timestamp is per entity. And also it's like in the case of, let's say, the GL history, it's also by financial year. The reason we do that is that we never refresh the entire history. Like we refresh the financial year and the ledger that you're looking for. Otherwise, imagine you have 50 years of data and you want to do this year versus last year. We would constantly be like refreshing and looking at the entire history. So we have a timestamp for that, let's say the list of accounts, timestamp for 2020 GL history, and then we tell Acumatica, okay, like, is there anything new or changed since the last refresh? This ends up being a very fast query on the server side. It's efficient to run, and then we receive like either nothing or just a few records that have been inserted or added. This works well for entities that are, I would say, like forward only, where like you cannot delete things once they've been released.
Oh, deleting.
Like, yes.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, exactly. But if you think about it, like in Vlixo, so what can you delete? Like accounts from the chart of accounts. So what happens if you have an account that gets deleted and it's still in the report?
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a balance, you will not be able to delete it anyway. Okay? That's why we have full refresh.
But if it's a vendor list, yeah, that might mess up.
The impact is not too bad. There's a way now that we could use for some entities to synchronize deletions. In the GI, you can expose deleted records. You might have noticed that at some point.
Yeah, true.
This is possible only for tables that have this deleted database record field.
Okay.
So we could retrieve that, and we could say, okay, we update our cache, but we never bothered doing
So that's why you might want to do a full refresh every now and then to catch deleted stuff for master level records.
Yes, and even though and
like once a week or something.
Once a week, and then you have people that like to do interesting things with databases. I answered some questions on the community page.
Like a non-SaaS environment?
Well, like someone right now is even in the cloud, you can still run SQL scripts.
Oh, true. True.
So there's a developer that's trying to implement that merge customer feature that Acumatica doesn't have, and he figured that he could just run a bunch of update queries. But after doing the updates, the balances are out of whack. So he's trying to run validate customer balances process. Anyway, it's something pretty interesting, but it's the type of stuff that could break a Delta refresh in Power BI or Smart refresh in Velixo. So yeah, you could just do a full refresh. It clears the cache and it reloads everything, which is still fast, very fast for most customers. We just have, today I saw a client that had 1 million rows in one table. This is not, common. So even in most cases, the full refresh is still very fast.
And how reliable is that last modified date time, have you found? So you're really leaning on Acumatica to make sure that gets updated every time. Have you found issues with it at all sometimes?
Yeah, never had any issues.
Okay.
The timestamp is actually set by SQL at the server level.
Okay.
Last modified date time, it's at a fairly low layer in the system. So it does get updated. Actually, I remember a few years back with some inventory statistic or inventory history table, the last modified date time was not getting updated when we were using a document. So that was an Acumatica bug. It was fixed a long time ago, but
I noticed something too with the last modified that just going, because I had mentioned that we go through and we put in the latitude, longitude of all these projects. Just opening the project, I've noticed, is pinging it as a modification. Is that the case for Velixo too, or is it only when a record has been changed or updated that is the last modified?
It should be only when the record has been changed.
Yeah, like last year it says we did 18,000 modifications, and it was there's no way we did that many. Those had to have been probably looked at or opened or closed, opened and closed.
You could turn on
full audit
history to see what has been changed. I wouldn't be surprised
through Acumatica you can do that.
Yeah, so maybe when you release a transaction, it updates some field on the project master. Maybe that's what's causing so many updates.
That PM budget table that we looked at.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious about that modification date. Now, can you, with that write back feature that we were talking about last night and earlier today, would you be able to pull that would that be from the schema or from the cache to populate to a field? Because I know it's probably inherently in the metadata of each new let's say we have a list of all our projects.
You're talking about Velixo right back?
Yeah, okay. Because if Velixo's basing a lot of their stuff off the update time, if you had in theory a data table that did not have that as a column, would you then be able to set that to calculate that time so you could see oh, this is the field that Velixo is going to be using on your GI? Does that make sense?
Do you understand this?
I don't follow.
What I'm getting at is
where's the write back come in?
If I make a new project, can I get that field to show up as this is the date time field for that project based on the metadata?
And why would you need it? That's what I'm missing.
Because if we've got 30,000 projects that don't have that field, we don't know what date that project was made. Can we pull that from its metadata? Or is
the created date time?
Yeah, if it's not being displayed on Acumatica, we just have the project name.
It's not displayed. Are you talking about the start date field at the project level?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, can you show us?
I think so. Let's see if I can do it without.
So we're talking about the last modified that gets set automatically. You're talking about a manual field that you would actually set.
I'm actually have to relog into Acumatica. I guess it would just be the created date, right?
Yeah, the created date. Yeah, but you can retrieve that from any GI.
So since we updated all of our old projects onto Acumatica, we didn't really necessarily have those created dates. So we dumped them all from Solomon into the year 1979.
Okay,
so we have 30,000 projects in 1979.
That's a different field.
It's a
Yeah.
If I feel okay.
Because
Yeah.
this gets set automatically. Whenever you imported all that into Acumatica,
Yeah, so that's
whatever that
exactly-
date was, that's
what
what's
it would be.
yeah, that's what it
I
would
was
be.
trying to see if I could get to.
You need like an attribute or something to dump that data into.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, or just use the start date field at the project level if you want the real job date. Or
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't need to.
We should probably wrap it up. We got I like that we had the background of people coming in and out. You can tell.
Yeah.
We're not just here at the hotel by ourselves. Thanks for joining us on this.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
It's
for
cool
having
to
me.
see a real use case. And I always love seeing Excel as middleware. I think I just love it because you would never see it in demos of software, but
Oh, no.
it exists in the real world.
It's actually funny. I think Excel is the root of all data, basically. Like, if
evolved
at worst case scenario, put it into Excel because then you can work with it. I actually stumbled upon Excel as esports like a month ago. If you get bored, check that out.
You're doing that, aren't you?
doing it?
yes,
is
yes,
esports?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you really?
Yes, yes.
What's
I
it
am.
called? Like the modeling
I
model
heard
off or
like
something?
Financial Modeling World Cup.
Yeah.
Yes,
He's
I-
gonna
And they'll give
join
you a
that.
challenge, and you have to like figure
Yes.
it out through Excel only, and you're racing against other. Do it. That's awesome.
Yes, and I decided I would do no prep at all. I don't want to.
Yeah. Preconceived notions or anything.
Yes, exactly. This is October 7th are the qualifications, and they picked the top 128 participants. to
That's
go.
awesome.
Yes,
I'll tune into that
yeah.
for sure.
Did you know like it was on ESPN?
Yes, yeah,
Yes,
and that's where I saw it. I like
and they're
stumbled
like
upon
it was, it's very funny. Like they said, oh, like yeah, he's going to use VLOOKUP. Yes, and
Yeah, the
they get so
VLOOKUP.
excited.
Like,
VLOOKUp.
the person on the left is really struggling. I can tell.
That's
Speaking of sports, I got to mention, you can't see it, but right out that window, there's a PXG Golf retail store. We're across the street from a mall. And PXG Golf is actually an Acumatica customer. I thought that was pretty cool. Right at the event here, we look out and we can see the retail front for an Acumatica customer. And you've used their products, right? Golf club.
Oh yeah, they make great golf shafts and clubs and apparel items, all that jazz. So they're a great store. Fun fact.
Yeah.
Anything
Wrap
else?
up?
All right.
Yes. What's the outro video?
Oh, yeah, we got to find
Yeah,
it.
which
Let's
one?
see.
We have so many now.
Scroll up. It should be further up.
Countdown.
Excel Talk outro right there.
Right there.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for
everyone.
watching.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Yeah. Thank you,
Making
Gabriel.
time.
I really appreciate
It was very
it.
fun.
Thanks.
Tim,
Thanks for
thank you
joining
for
us.
having me. Yeah.
Bye.
Did you find it?
Yeah. Okay.
There it is.
Here we